Hello there, and welcome to my fourth review. And this film, well, it wasn't really a film, but this is a slightly different one to all the others that I've done so far, and you should know what it was if you watched the previous video. I think I had about like 10 views, which was released last week because I had other stuff planned. And so this week's one is They Shall Not Grow Old, which was released. Well, there was the release date for this was the 16th of October 2018. This was actually before it was released on like telly officially. Like it was done at the London Film Festival. And that specific day, they did it so it was broadcast in cinemas as well as at that film festival. So we got to see like the film festival like introduction. They were introduced to the film, and then the film happened, and then there was like a little Q&A afterwards with Mark Kermode doing the question and answering, and he was asking Peter Jackson, who was the director, questions. Yeah, and so this was technically released on the 16th of October 2018, but it was for the mass audience. It was released on TV. It was on BBC Two on 11th of November, Remembrance Day, and it was because it was the 100 years since the end of World War Two. World War Two, World War One. I study history as well. It's like, why? I make these stupid mistakes. And the 11th of November, this was released on BBC Two, and I saw it both times. I saw it in the cinema and when it was on telly, because it's only ever been on telly once, and then I think you can like get snippets of it from YouTube. I believe the length was about 120. If you watched the version on the telly, the BBC Two one that they released, that was about 99 minutes, so about an hour and a half. An hour 40 minutes. This one was, with the Q&A, it was about 2 hours and 9 minutes. So 129 minutes. And that was with the Q&A and everything. Right. I wouldn't say it's a plot, but kind of like the overarching theme for this documentary was about World War One. So it was the director wanted, because it was in dedication for his granddad, and he wanted to do something for the 100 years of the end of World War One. And so what he did was he found old footage of like soldiers during like World War One. So it went all the way through the war. So it started off like just before, like in 1914, but just before war kicked off. So it showed like the men at home preparing for war. They ended up joining up, and then it started off in black and white for like I think the first like 10-20 minutes of the documentary, and it shows like the soldiers preparing for war, and then like when the training, it's in black and white, but it's showing like you start seeing the same people like all the way through. Like it's following us like certain people. Sometimes they were never named until like the very end. They were never named, the people who were like on each thing, and it only like the main point of this was that it was the first time that anything from the First World War was colorized, and Peter Jackson was able to do it thanks to like some companies in Britain and in New Zealand. So he had the IWM, the International War Museum, and he did have like a few people in I think he had like a company in New Zealand who was helping him, and so like it starts off like soldiers go off to fight, and then like as they go to the trench, like the camera zooms out slightly, and then like the colour slowly fades in, and then you start to hear voices and sound, because they've recovered the sound as well. So like you start to hear certain like opinions and like people talking, and then it's all very harrowing, because anything about World War One is always harrowing, because I may get opinionated here, but World War One is always the contentious one, in that it was the war that should never have been fought, because technically there was never really an aggressor. That you could pick like about 5 or 6 different countries who could do it. You could say Germany, you could say France, Russia, Austria, Hungary, Serbia, Bosnia. You could just blame like a lot of countries, and you could blame us. And that's why it's always so harrowing, in that it's always the war it was the war to end all wars. And like, there's always the thing of, World War One, it's harder to do because not everyone, there wasn't really a guilty party. Like, you could say that some were innocent, some were not. But like, obviously with World War Two, it's like in media, it's always considered acceptable for the murdering of Nazis, because there was a clear aggressor in Hitler, and that's why in mass media, like films, games and stuff, most of the time if it's a World War game, it's normally World War Two, because they can get away with the murdering of Nazis, because you can say, oh, that made sense, they were the aggressor. Anyway, like this felt like it shows it mainly from the British side, because obviously to start it does show like the British side. It shows like I think it shows some Russians and then some French people, some French soldiers, and like it goes about their daily life. So you see some of them fighting and dying, and it's very harrowing. Then you see like the normal life, so like you see the depressing side of being in a trench, and you have like the rats, you have the trench foot, you have like the bad like weather conditions, the beds and whatever, and then you have like the kind of the jovial side of it, in what the soldiers got up to out of the trenches. So you had you had some of them singing songs, you had them playing games, you had them. There was it was a 15, so they were allowed to show certain things, and that like they showed sometimes the soldiers being like quite gross in how they went to the toilet. They like if they ever needed a shit, like in the film they actually showed like a bunch of people sat on like a plank, and like their bum, their asses were hanging off the bench, and it was like they're trying to kind of make it a lot lighter tone, but kind of like it showed like what the soldiers tried to do to occupy themselves when they weren't obviously dying for their respective countries. And there's something that I found out through this that I'd never known before, and that is that when the British took if there was ever some German prisoners, because they did show some German prisoners, if there was ever some German prisoners, you always had the people, when they used to help the first aid team, and this proves in a way that because with the Nazis, everyone always says, oh yeah, the Nazis, no, all the Nazis were bad, but with the First World War, there were Germans who didn't want the war, and so there was some who was willing to help the British side, and so when they became a prisoner, they used to just kind of watch and observe the first aiders, and then sometimes they used to like help injured British soldiers, or British, French, or Russian soldiers, like go along the trenches, and like you could say that the German prisoners helped save lives. And they did. But then you have the problem of, and I'd never known this before. I always thought that the British took people, like we took people prisoner, they took people prisoner, and there was like torture and whatever, like to reveal positions and battle plans and stuff. But this proves something else, and it proves the honesty and the care that soldiers can have. And then you have, and like the ending is like it goes through the war. You get to 1918, and there are two bits, like two ending bits. There's the there's a bit where there's a big battle, and I can't remember what the battle was, but there was a big battle, and this battle, it showed also the whole film. Because it was actually filmed by people who were there, like there were camera people who technically weren't soldiers, but they went with them. There's always the fun, interesting thing, because some soldiers had never seen a camera before because it was still quite new in the early 1910s. So you had whenever they're walking in a battalion, you always had one or two people who'd look at the camera and make silly faces or be quite wary of it because they didn't trust it. And it's it's just so true to the time, and so it was just so well done. Anyway, with the big battle, you had the camera with the soldiers, and then you heard the whistle, and then the camera goes up with them, and the camera's on the side of the battlefield while the rest of them are in no man's land, and it shows that, and then I don't know if this was the actual end bit, but the audio throughout the whole thing was little audio excerpts of older soldiers, veterans, who had I think they died, but that they recorded these in the 70s or 80s, and they've been stored in the BBC vault or something in the archive, and that's what they were used here, and they showed. When they were oh yeah, here is this guy, and towards the end they revealed that oh yeah, this is this guy, this is his name, and then towards the end they showed, oh, here's a photo of this guy who you've seen throughout the whole thing, and then here's his dead body, and they did that I think about 10 times. It was oh, here he is, this is his name, and that's how he died, and they did that, and that was really harrowing as well, because it was gruesome as well. You had body parts everywhere. You had rats going in and out the bodies, maggots everywhere, and the ending is kind of the wars. It shows the war's over, and then it just kind of I think it slowly zooms out, and then I can't remember this. I think the song's called where is it? Mademoiselle from Armentières, and that starts playing, and that's what's through the whole credits, and the credits actually lists a lot of the soldiers who were there, who appeared in this film. So it's just kind of the song. I think the song lasts for about 5 to 8 minutes, and that's the whole credits, and then that's the whole thing. And then afterwards there was a Q&A of how Peter Jackson was able to do it, if any of them knew his granddad and whatever, and yeah. As I said, Peter Jackson was the director, the guy who did Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff like that. And he also helped with the Tintin film, I think. And they used the IWM and BBC to help restore some of the footage. The producer was Claire Olson, and I think one of her relatives edited the film. But it was published by Warner Brothers, because, of course, yeah. I quite like Warner Brothers. Why am I moaning? I don't know. Oh, they made Batman vs Superman. Grr. Get on to that. Right. Box office. Now, this film, altogether, $20.4 million. Worldwide, where it was released. I don't think it was released everywhere, but I think it was released in most places. But I know the main ones were America, Canada, and here in Britain, and that was where it was all together. The awards for this film, it was nominated for the BAFTA for Best Documentary. It didn't win in 2018, and it was snubbed at the Oscars because it was too late for 2019, because this came out late 2018, so it should have been submitted for the 2019 Oscars, but it wasn't. For some reason they didn't accept it, because apparently it was ineligible because it was too late, even though that happened. And then the year after, so this year, the 2020 Oscars, this again was snubbed because for some reason it was eligible. But it's 1917. For the BAFTA, it came out in January for British people. I think Americans got it earlier, I think like November, December time, but we got it in January, and that was nominated for a BAFTA. It won quite a few BAFTAs, and it was like, why wasn't this? It's like this deserved an Oscar. Like I said last time with Josh Brolin, this deserved an Oscar, and it should have done. It should have at least... Well, even if it hadn't have won the Oscar for Best Documentary, because I don't know many other documentaries that came out that year, because I never really pay attention apart from when the war ones. But at least this should have been nominated for Oscar for Best Documentary. Because I don't get how it didn't. It restored old footage that people might have seen, but not really in colour. And it was harrowing. It was just... Because it's about war, and anything that's actual war is always much more harrowing than a film. So, like, you could argue that this would be more harrowing than 1917, even though 1917 is a true story. This shows actual people. It's not an actor playing a soldier. It's a soldier and the account of that person. And and the reviews for this film, Rotten Tomatoes gave this about 99% out of 100, and they very rarely do that for films. But this got that, and then with Metacritic it was 91 out of 100. And some historians got annoyed at this film because apparently the colorization they don't like, because then it's been translated. So it's like how I do, there's a philosophy thing of the origin of the Bible in terms of because it's been translated that much, is it still that sacred text? I'm an atheist, but I study it anyway because you need to know these things. Probably, I don't know. And it's like that. It's like, if it's been distorted or changed, is it still as reliable as the original footage? And that's what some historians didn't like about this film. Personally, I actually really liked this because it was because I'd never been to a live showing of anything in a cinema before. Like I've been to stuff on opening nights, but I haven't been to something that was a broadcast that was live that you could never see again in the cinema, because I don't think they ever released it in cinema here again. They did it in America 2019, they released it, but they never really did it again after this. And I think that if this is how good documentaries can be, then that means that there's going to be a bunch of new, really good documentaries coming out soon. Because I really want to watch that one about I think it was called McMillions, the one about the McDonald's frauding in America, where people stole those Monopoly tickets, and I think they won over 30 grand or something on over 10 years in the 70s and 80s, because of these things. And apparently that is really good, and I need to see that, but I haven't been able to yet because it hasn't been on again, really. Right, this is the end of this review, and my next film, I jumped forward a bit because because I didn't really see many films in between. I did, but I don't have the tickets because I'm going through my tickets first. Then I have a list on this website of films, and I'll start doing them. So I did see more films between They Shall Not Grow Old and this film, but this is the next ticket that I own, and that is Avengers Endgame, which is obviously the 25th of April 2019. And yeah, that will be a good review. I feel like that will also be another long one. I mean, this was already quite long. I'm surprised this was long. And that's it. There's nothing else I need to say. They Shall Not Grow Old is good. If you haven't seen it, please go and see it. If you're not a history fan, still watch it, because you need to know because knowing this actually is a good it's a good idea for now. It's like how you have to at least know some countries and their capitals. It's like you need to know this stuff as a basics. Even if you don't like history, you should at least know this stuff. This was my TED Talk. I mean, it wasn't my TED Talk. This has been my video. If you liked it, there are other videos on here. There'll be future videos on there. I'm planning to do one tomorrow, but that may end up derailing, like it always does. I think I might end up just doing one a week. My schedule might start to be just one on a Saturday. But anyway, that's been all. Thank you for watching, if you have. Don't blame me if you haven't. And goodbye.